Hi there, I'm the BigCraigO and I am a content producer for Magic the Gathering Arena, and you're watching one of my deck tech series. Today's deck that we're going to be working on or working with and going through and reviewing is a very popular deck at the moment that's starting to edge its way out of those sort of top few tiers, which is Dimir Rogues. So let's have a look at the deck and see what it's all about. Those of you that are familiar with these deck tech series that I do will appreciate that I normally do a mana curve breakdown and then I go into the individual cards. So having a look at this deck, it runs 17 creatures, 20 non-creature spells. The average casting cost across the whole deck is 2.4, which means it's fairly low down, has the ability to be able to really maximise the mana every turn, theoretically playing one or multiple spells. It definitely doesn't need a huge amount of mana to get started. You can see there that there's 16 1-drop spells in this deck. There are 9 2-drops, 6 3-drops, and then it goes up from there. Ultimately though, the deck is primarily based around getting a few creatures out and then causing your opponent to have to mill cards. And that's how it works. So let's have a look at the actual individual cards. So to start off with, I've basically moved this deck and set it up so that we can go through and review it in a couple of key areas. Okay, so the first thing is your obviously creature spells. Whether they do direct damage, whether they mill, or whether they are there to just basically get in the way and stop your opponent from killing you outright. That's the sort of creature slots. We then have a sort of series of spells which are removal or designed to basically take out those bigger threats that are going to cause your life total to get to 0 before you can get your opponent out. And then finally we've got our card draw to refill our hand, or to sort of being able to find pieces that you specifically need in given circumstances. They're the three main sections, and then obviously we've got our mana. This deck does run a companion in the form of Loris, as you can see behind my head. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, Loris is a creature that has a legendary creature, a cat nightmare, 3/2 power for 1 colourless, 1 white or black, 1 white or black. So 2 black in this case and 1 other will get you a 3/2 lifelink cat nightmare. The key thing about this is it allows us to recur things from our graveyard back into the battlefield whilst it's in play. So it's quite useful. It doesn't run a full playset, it's only got a single one of these, but it is quite useful for that factor. We move on to the land, which is obviously something that we need to go through. It runs seven islands, 4 swamps. You'll see variations on the theme, but ultimately that's the mainstay of the deck. It runs the blue-black multi-flip lands. It runs 4 of the temples of deceit, which come to play tapped and scry, which allows us to actually sort of pick the right things at the right times. Some Fable passages, which are really good for triggering one of the creatures, which being the Ruin Crab, so you get those multiple mills from that. And also Agadan into the Undercrypt. Now, you and as Pinch can play this as a black mana. Most of the time though, you're going to be using this to bring a bunch of different rogue creatures back onto the battlefield from your graveyard, giving multiple sort of mill effects from your thieves also. So that's the mana base. Let's go into the creatures now. So there's 3 creatures that are in the 1-drop sort of slot, costing 1 mana, which is the first of those. The Merfolk Wind Robber. It's 1 blue for a 1/1 flying creature. Whenever Merfolk Wind Robber deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. You can sacrifice Merfolk Wind Robber, draw a card, activate this ability only if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Quite useful if you, at the end of your opponent's turn, can sacrifice this creature to draw a card and then recast the It also runs a full play set of 4 Ruin Crabs, 0/3s. This particular creature, whenever a land comes into play, your opponent mills 3 cards. Quite useful when you combo it up with the Fabled Passage, allowing you to play this, mill 3 cards, go and search up another land by sacrificing the Fabled Passage, put that into play, mill another 3 cards. As you can imagine, it doesn't take very long for those cards to really stack up and get your opponent in a really tough position. The final 1-drop creature in the deck is the Thieves Guild Enforcer. If you're not familiar with this card, it is really, really good. So it's 1 black for a 1/1 human rogue creature with flash. Whenever Thieves Guild Enforcer or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. Very powerful. Finally, in the creature slots, we have a 2-drop, our first 2-drop creature, or only 2-drop creature, which is 1 black, 1 blue for a 1/3 human rogue soaring Fort Thief. This creature has flash, has flying. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent gets 2 cards. Now, the ability for us to have multiples of these on the battlefield means that you're going to get those triggers multiple times. So be it the +1/+0, or be it the every time a rogue attacks, you're milling 2 cards. Quite useful. The other thing is too, it does enable the Thieves Guild Enforcer when this comes into play to mill 2 more cards as well. So very good card. In the removal side, we have a mix of different spells. So we'll start off at the most effective, cheap, wise, cost effective, I think is the expression, which is the Dead Weight. It's 1 black for an aura. It gives an enchanted creature -2/-2. It's good for just taking out individual components, and it also can be replayed from the graveyard using auras because it comes in under the 2 mana cost. Very, very useful for that. Moving on, we have a 1 black, 1 blue for Drown in the Loch. This has 2 different modes. It's an instant spell. You can choose either to counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in the controller's graveyard, or it can destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in the controller's graveyard. So it can be counter spell or it can be removal depending on what you need at the time. You can run all 4 of those. A new addition for this deck is in the form of Kaldheim's Crippling Fear. It's 2 black and 2 other, so 4 casting costs in total. It's a sorcery spell. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't that chosen type get -3/-3 until end of turn. Very effective. The majority of creatures in this deck are rogues, so it helps you to be able to do that. And then finally, as far as our final removal spell is Erebos's Intervention. It's 1 black and X. It's an instant spell, has 2 modes. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn and you gain X life. Or the other mode is exile up to twice X target cards from graveyards. So you don't specifically use your opponent's graveyard for very much, other than enabling some other spells. But ultimately, you can go through and remove a bunch of cards from your opponent's graveyard to stop them from recurring, as an example, and also to stop them from maybe getting some of the benefits from some of the cycles, etc. Alright, finally we have our card draw cards. We have 3 different types there. So the first one is Fate of Wishes, which is 1 blue, 1 other for a 1/4 flying creature. You can pay 1 blue, 1 other and discard 2 cards, return Fate of Wishes to its hand. So that's the creature side. It has a sorcery adventurer attached to it called Granted, which costs 1 blue and 3 other. You may reveal a non-creature card from you can own from outside the game and put it into your hand. In essence, what it means is you can pay 4 and get a card out of your sideboard and put it into your hand. So it's quite useful to have a few little things in there that'll give you that extra little bit of punch that you may need just for those specific matchups that you struggle with. We'll go through the sideboard now just to sort of show you what that card has access to. So if we have a look here, there's a lot of singletons, e.g. they're all just one-offs because that's the time that you're going to be using it. So you've got Tormod's Crypt, which is good for sacrificing. Basically, it's a 0-cost artifact. You can sacrifice it and exile all cards from target player's graveyard. very good for getting rid of those recursion decks, Rakdos or Cycle. There's a removal spell in the form of Blood Chief's Thirst. It's 1 black. It has a kick ability of another black and 2 others to destroy target creature or planeswalker. If you pay the kicker, it doesn't have any restrictions on what it actually kills. There's a duress, so basically to get in and grab something out of your opponent's hand that's actually going to finish it off. There's some more counter spell in the form of Disdainful Stroke. There's a negate, Epic Downfall, which allows you to basically exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. So if they've got big creatures that you need to get rid of, that's a way to find the answer. Feed the Swarm, 1 black, 1 other, destroy target creature, enchantment, and opponent controls. You lose life equal to the permanent's converted mana cost. Yeah, all good. Sorcerer's Spyglass, just locking down. As Sorcerer's Spyglass enters the battlefield, look at your opponent's hand and choose any card name. Activated abilities of sorcerers with that chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. Pretty good stuff. Soul Shatter, getting your opponent to sacrifice a creature that maybe you can't target. Dream Trawler comes to mind. Extinction Event, just wiping the battlefield. If they've got a lot of creatures out, so if they've gone wide, say a white weenie life gain deck, this is quite an effective card in clearing the board. Ashiok allows you to, if you play this out onto the battlefield, start to grab your opponent's card, put them into exile, and then potentially bring them back under your control. Ugin, he's the big bad. Another Erebos's Intervention, just because it's an effective card against certain matchups. And then we have Lol Mage's Domination. Now, we've seen decks that have used these main board in the Rogues front. This is a sideboard option because it's not really what it's focused in on. It is quite effective at taking your opponent's stuff and making them obviously pay the price for that. So there's a few options there. Going back onto the actual deck proper, we've got 2 other draw cards here. So we've got of 1 Mind, it costs 1 blue and 2 other for a sorcery spell. You'll notice here that this spell costs 2 less if you cast, if you control a human creature and a non-human creature, draw 2 cards. So it just gives you that option to really reduce down the cost, pay 1 and draw some extra cards. And then finally we have a full playset of 4 into the story. So this spell costs 2 blue and 5 other, but it does have a reduction in cost if your opponent has 7 or more cards in the graveyard. You can reduce the cost by 3, making it 2 blue and 2 other, which is quite good, paying 4 to draw 4 cards. Alright, so all in all, that's the deck tech, that's the actual deck elements. There are variations on this theme. The deck has been around for a while. It's starting to lose a little bit of its favour because there are some other meta changes and shifts that this deck sort of struggles with. It's still, I would say, in the top 3 tiers. It's probably tier 3 now, which is unusual. It was probably sitting around the sort of 1 to 2, 1.5 to 2 for quite some time before that, and then obviously it was the big bad. It's not going to steamroll every deck that you get up against, but it is going to be competitive against every deck that you play. So that's the majority of people. If you pilot this particular deck well, you've got as much chance as anyone else of winning. You don't feel outclassed in any particular game. Alright, let's go and play some games. For our game 0 against Sparky, just to talk through the decision-making process and basically just set us up so that everyone understands what's going on. I always will play a game against Sparky just to get a feel for the deck, and then we go into some games against actual human components. Alright, let's get started. This hand here, looking at it, I've got a couple of land here, so I've got a land that allows me to play either blue or black. I've got a blue land, so that enables all the other spells. I've got a couple of creatures, I've got a bit of removal and some card draw a bit later on, so this is a key.
Let's get started.
I always say hello to my opponent, or hopefully I always say hello, and wish them love, and then we kick on to the actual game proper. I'm going to play the black spell because I can flash Thieves Guild Enforcer in at the end of their turn. That means it's not going to get removed by any of their spells particularly. Alright, so it kicks through to us, so we flash this into play. That mills 2 cards straight off the top. We get a gull and a land, no big deal there. Play a second land spell for our turn, move on. I'm going to go to the attack step. I'll attack it for 1, hoping that I don't have anything to flash. If I don't, we do 1 point damage and I'm going to pass turn. Now, I've got the ability to be able to counter or kill one of their creatures if that happens, if we need to, or I can actually play through a Soaring Thought Thief. From my point of view, we stay with our strategy. They've tapped out there, so what I'm going to do is play the Soaring Thought Thief, causing our Thieves Guild to mill 2 cards. What do we get that time? So we've got a Wind Storm Drake and another land card. Not bad. Play the third land rather than playing a Fabled Passage. I'm going to play that out and just sort of sit back, because hopefully we'll get one of those Ruin Crabs to be able to maximise the mill. From that point of view, I mean, ultimately we could attack in with both and see what happens. There's no real benefit to us to do that, so what I'm going to actually do is just attack in with the Soaring Thought Thief. We're going to do 1 point of damage here. We mill 2 because we've attacked. It's all good. From my point of view at this stage, we're in a fairly commanding position. They play their third land. Sparky puts in her shenanigans. Now, so at this point in time, they're going to give their creature +1/+1, which will make it a 2/4. This is going to be a little bit of a problem for us if we let it to continue to go. I know that we've got 6 cards in their graveyard, so we can actually just destroy the creature. That way we take out both spells, and we pump up our creatures as well. Alright, unfortunately for us, they play a second Swarm Guardian, so that's a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. I'm going to play a Merfolk Wind Robber just to trigger the mill. Play the dead weight onto the Swarm Guardian. So now it becomes a -1/1, so when we attack in, hopefully that will mean our opponent blocks. Die, but it may not. They may just choose to take it. No, they do block. Alright. I am going to play the Fabled Passage at this point in time, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. Alright, so they're casting an enchantment onto our Thieves Guild Enforcer, which means that our creature won't untap. Gull. Okay. Go and get another black mana. So we've got 2 and 2. And at this point in time, I'm going to play Into the Story.
Wow.
The cost of that spell reduced dramatically because of the amount of cards that are in the opponent's graveyard. I'll play a black mana, play a Thieves Guild Enforcer, causing both of them to trigger. 4 cards go into the graveyard. Move on to the attack step. Attack in with both. 2 more go to the graveyard. Now if they block the Gull, which is quite possible, I'm going to sacrifice the Wind Robber to draw another card. We do 2 points of damage and pass back to them. Okay, they play a 2/1. Is it Elemental? Yeah, Elemental Wizard. We take 1. I'll play another Thieves Guild Enforcer. 6 cards going into the graveyard now. Play another land here. I'm going to move the Loris across at this stage. Kill their Cloudkin Seer, the Elemental, and then attack in for 6. Dropping them down to 8. So you can see already how this deck sort of chips away, sort of makes gains here and there. Obviously we're playing against Sparky, which is not the hardest matchup, but it is what it is. Now, if I have a look here, rogue, 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 rogue. All of our creatures are rogues. So I'm going to use this, which is our mass removal spell. Select rogue, so our rogues don't get affected by it. Done. Clear the board. Play a land. I think we'll go and get another black mana. Because that'll allow us to play Loris. Play the Loris out onto the battlefield. So we don't have any more mana, but we could play other creatures at this point in time. But we basically attack in and finish our opponent off. There we go.
We meet again, Planeswalker.
Okay, so unfortunately I accidentally pressed keep before I actually started recording. So we've got a good hand here. We've got 2 lands, we've got 4 creatures and some draw. Ultimately, it's a fairly good hand, so we'll keep it and keep continuing pushing forward. Play the tap land to start off with, so that we've got access to blue and black. Some removal off the top. Probably don't need that at this stage, only because it's a bit later down as far as the forecasting costs. So I'll scry it to the bottom and see what we draw next turn. Wish our opponent hello, and also love. See how we end up. Okay, so we're up against a mirror match by the look of it. I'm going to play the safer option and actually try and maximise the mill that we get into to start off with. We've hit 2 of the into the stories off the top, a land and another creature. They do have a Loris that can bring the creature back, so that's less good, but it is what it is. Okay, so they've got their blue and their black as well now, so that's good for them. Okay, so they kill our kill our enforcer, so that they we can't trigger more sort of auto mills. At this point in time, I'm going to attack in with the Merfolk Wind Robber. Hit another one of their draw spells. Flash our second Wind Robber in and sit back and just wait and see what they do. So we do have a Drown in the lock. We also have the Soaring Thought Thief that I will put into play if and when we get to the end of their turn. If I've still got the mana up. Alright, so they played a tap land now as well. They mill onto the they scry onto the top. Pass to us. Okay, it's to my turn. I'm going to try and get the Soaring Thought Thief. It's quite possible that they'll counter this, but in this case they don't. Play the Ruin Crab out and move on to the attack step. Okay, attack in with these 2, mill 2 more, 2 crabs off the top. We're now doing 4 damage, so that's going to start adding up pretty quickly. They don't block. Drop them down to 16, mill another one off the top. We do have the Drown in the Lock mana up, so that's good. At this point in time, I don't want to spend the mana to draw cards and then not be able to protect our creatures that we've got in play. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to counter that spell just because I don't want them to have options. I'm trying to reduce the amount of options they've got. I'm going to play of one mind. We've got the ability to keep it nice and cheap. Play another land, play a second black land. So our crab takes care of business there. I attack him with the 2 again. Hitting, we've got 1. I've got 2 Soaring Thought Thieves off the top. Wow. That's going to make you unhappy. Look. I'm happy to trade there. Because it just reduces their ability to be able to swing back or to block at a future date. I want to need to do that mill. Our opponent's at 16 in the graveyard, so it's unlikely they're going to cast anything that's going to stop me from being able to do Drown in the Lock. I just have to be mindful that they may have their own Drown in the Lock to counter my counter. Okay, so opponent decides at that point there's no future and they scoop it up. Alright, see you in the next game. Okay, so we've got our opening hand here. It's a bit of a strange one. We've got 4 land, a counter spell and some +1 creature. I ordinarily would be a little bit freaked out by this, but sort of seeing, let's see what happens. Okay. I'm going to shock us for 3. Play a Thieves Guild Enforcer. Milling them for 2. See what we draw. Yes, we draw what we need. Blue into play. And then play a second Thieves Guild Enforcer, milling 4, and then pass 2 back to them. Okay, so do a migration path cycle. Hugin. Alright. No attacks. Obstruct Beast. No, I'll take 1. It's all good. Play this. Kill the Lovestruck Beast. And our opponent decides they can't get past the rogues. Alright, let's go on to the next one. So we've got our opening hand here. This looks pretty solid. We've got a few rogue creatures that are going to mill, some with flying and some card draw, plus a bit of counter spell or removal, depending on what we need. I'm happy to keep this. Let's do it. Okay, so green black, Golgari type deck. Play the Thieves Guild Enforcer into play, mill 2. Our turn. Play a second Thieves Guild Enforcer. Mill for 4. Play a Wind Robber, mill for another 4. Yeah, so it's one of the poison decks, which is cool. And end turn. So death touching elf road. Mill for another 4. Remove the dead weight. Remove their creature with the dead weight, I should say. Play the land, tap, tap in for 7. Dropping them down to 10, milling another card. Pass turn. Can't see our opponent sticking around for much longer unless they've got an answer. It's a pretty good answer. By that I mean it's a 1/4 whenever a creature with death touch attacks. Back to me. I'm going to play another land. Destroy the creature. And then we'll move on to the attack step. Up and down to 2. Mill another 2 cards off the top. End turn. Yeah, I didn't think our opponent would stick around for much longer, so there you go. Rogue has still got it. This looks like a pretty good hand. It's a little slow, but I think that it's got everything it needs to be able to push the damage. So let's see what we're paired up against. Wish our opponent hello and love. They've got cool sleeves, that's nice. Alright, so I'm going to scry on top. Get another land there, that's good. Alright, so first things first. I'm going to play the Ruin Crab, then play the Black Swamp. The Swamp, they come from play taps, and then play the field. Alright. So we mill for 3 off the top. See a bit more, hopefully, what the. Alright, so it looks like we could potentially be up against the mirror match. Soaring Thought Thief, mill another 2, move to the attack step, attacking, mill another 2, hopefully be able to push through that damage, master our opponent. We'll see what happens here. We may get to draws, we may not. Okay, 2 go in the bin. Loris's work's going to be pretty cut out for him, so that's okay. Play a land here. Move to the attack step. Milk 2 more. Drop him down to 12. Take care of their Thought Thief. At this point in time, when we're at 7 cards, they're going to potentially be able to pump this up pretty quickly. That's okay. Go. We take 4, drop down to 16. From my point of view, really need to focus in on happening. Blue. Okay. Got him down to 30 cards. I'm going to block again. Drop him to 8 life. I'm going to bring the Loris across. Just throw in another thing. If we are able to untap, get the Loris into play, gives us a bunch of different options. Ruin Crab, Fatal Passage. That's a lot of cards that are going to be going to the graveyard. If that happens. Blocks. Drops down to 12. Okay, so play this. Really pushing the options here. Attacking that. Got him down to 13. Trade off there. Nicely done. Blocks. Okay. 6 more cards go in the graveyard. Oh, yeah, 6 more. Yeah. I was going to say it's more than that. No, it's not. Attack for all of them. 2 more. Drop them down to 4. Okay, at this point in time, we just need to. Drops us down to 1. Crab. And we get there. Okay, so that wraps up the games for today's deck tech. Basically, rogues are still an effective deck. I'm never going to say that it's not going to be an effective deck. It just doesn't have the same level of punch it may have had maybe a few weeks or months ago. It does struggle against some of the mid-range and control builds that are around. They do have the ability to be able to just mess up the setups and the phases that the rogues have. I would say that it's moved down in its sort of effectiveness, and therefore, I'd give it probably a C minus. Maybe that's a bit harsh. A C rank. So it's a suitable deck. It's good. It's just not something that I think it's going to be pushing back But as the meta evolves and changes, that's quite possible that it will actually sort of work its way back into the sort of tier 2, tier 1 rankings. Look, just wanted to throw out there, guys, really appreciate all the support you've given me. Please feel free to comment below what other decks you'd like me to do deck techs on. I stream Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is Greenwich Mean Time plus 10 hours. Feel free to give me a follow on Twitch so that you know when I'm coming online or going online. If you're watching this right now and you haven't, please consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything, it just really helps me to get more recognition from the algorithm. And comments, like I said before, and like or dislike, the case may be. Other than that, guys, really appreciate it. I will be releasing more content as we go forward, and we're really enjoying the community that's sort of spreading up around. So have a great one. Talk to you soon.